There we go. All right.
Thanks so much, Karen.
Yep.
Okay, we're recording now. Thank you, everybody, for joining our second DPT RAC meeting in 2026. We really appreciate you all coming back for the comments we've received both during the last meeting and written comments. So today will be a brief meeting. We have an hour, so we can take as long as we need within that time. And what we'll do is discuss and review the changes to the draft rule that I made between last meeting and this one. We'll have time for public comment, and then we'll also have, just a brief slide on our next steps in this process. Any questions before we get going? Okay, let's jump right in. Okay, so some revisions that I made based on our conversation and comments. And what I'll do is I'll review these and then we can, you're welcome to interrupt me with questions and we can jump back and forth to the actual rules. But my plan right now is to go through these and then go to the rules and look at them in place. But feel free to stop me if something else makes sense. So I know we had at the last meeting a lot of discussion around the definition of drug and how that was used. Sometimes just drug was used, and sometimes prescription drug was used. And I went through all the rules carefully, and there were not any actual inaccuracies in the rule, but there is some clarification that would be helpful, we decided. So we did add a definition of drug. And as you probably saw, we're just referencing back to the definition provided for prescription drug in statute. So hopefully that will just be clarifying. But again, no meeting or no inaccuracies were found in the rules as they are. When we did have a reference just to the word drug, there was always some kind of preamble that said prescription drug. So it was, if you read it in full, it's clear it's referencing back to that. So that's that change. Thank you again to Daria for mentioning the CMS, updating the CMS threshold for reporting on new prescription drugs. Really seems like yesterday that we did that. So we can look at that in place too. But even though we're not required to, I did leave the previous thresholds just for ease of historical reference. So that will go into effect, all these rules will go into effect. That one I believe is January 1. The other question we had in the last rack was the term price, and this was specifically around reporting the price of other manufacturers' drugs. And there was, and I actually looked back and there was some discussion of this in written comment in the rack we held in 2024. And the term price is actually defined in rule already as WAC, as wholesale acquisition cost, which is publicly available data. There had been some comment around price being trade secret, and there being some concerns around that. So, just again, clarifying that price where we said price before, really that means WAC. It already meant that, but we're changing that in the rule. We're proposing to change that in the rule just for clarity and hopefully to ease some confusion. Yeah, Daria, please.
Hi, thanks. I just want to comment, it's not, one of the issues is, proprietary information about where a company places themselves among their competitors, but also beyond that, I think that manufacturers have concerns with reporting other manufacturers' information, even if it is publicly available, it's not their information, and there's a kind of a liability or a compliance concern with the idea that they could be required to report information that they are not responsible for, and then if they If the department says that they did it wrong, that's the risk that part of the risk that people have concerns with around that. But that's to put more color on that for you.
Yeah, thank you for that context. Yeah, Mike.
Yeah. Hey, good morning. Sorry. I think the other part of that is it almost feels like when we use that as a reason for why we might increase the price,
Hmm.
saying, well, the other guy did it is not really our reasoning. And so hopefully in that particular section, manufacturers will be able to say, we didn't look at other people's prices when we set our price. If
Yep.
if we have to put something in that says, well, company X did it, that's why we did it, that kind of implicates both companies, and that's not really, I think, what you're going for. So I don't know how to add on to what Daria just said, other than to say I really don't. I hope that we don't have to have a reason other than because we chose to raise the price as the reason for that, where it looks at other companies.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Karen, I think it'd be helpful if you went, if we looked at the rule itself, for a second. And let's see, let me see if I can tell you exactly what page it's on. Um,
I'd be glad to add some clarification on our
yeah,
expectations once we have that displayed on the screen too.
yeah. Keep scrolling down, Karen. Sorry, I'm not.
It's
It
part of the
might be
ways.
page. Take a look at page 7.
Oh, 7. Thanks, Mike.
Right.
At least that's it. The document that I'm looking at is page 7. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, scroll down a little bit more so we can see most of 9. That's great, Karen. Thank you. Um, so Mike and Sophie, I want you to jump in a second just to talk about how the reporting on IREG actually works. But in terms of what the rule says here, um, and I know we talked about this a little bit last time, but in that red, factors may include, but are not limited to. So this is really trying to give examples of, and these are examples, many of which are provided in statute as well. Um, so it's supposed to be, yeah, examples of what could cause or cause a price to increase. It is not meant to be um, mandatory, so they
Okay.
may include. And there may also be other factors that are not listed here, and that is represented in G,
Okay.
or sorry, F, and then G. So really,
Yeah.
if none of those factors apply to, a manufacturer's decision, that's totally fine. If something else does that is not listed, we would like to
Good.
hear about that too.
Is
Um,
it possible to add these two words in front of the word factors?
mm,
Examples of
mm, interesting.
examples of factors
Hmm.
may include, but are not
Hmm.
limited to.
Hmm.
And it's just a thought, because
Yeah.
the way I read it, and the word may is very important there.
Yeah.
Um, I think I told you before, I'm a soccer referee, and so this is a busy time of year with the World Cup, but I always get asked for interpretations of rules. And
Hmm.
our rules sometimes say the referee may, or they
Hmm.
say shall. And shall means doggone it, you're going to do it.
Right.
And so I see may and I hear that. But when I read this across, it almost looks like you're asking for a list of factors. But I think if you put examples of,
Hmm.
or you underlined may or something, however you feel like might be appropriate, I think that further clarifies it. Because listening
Yeah.
to you, I understand it now. If
Yeah.
I were the one that having to do this, it would make perfect sense to me. But I'm not
Yeah.
always going to be that person. Does that
Right.
help?
Right. That does help. And yeah, that's certainly something we will consider. We don't underline, we're not able to, well, at least I don't think
Okay.
so. It's not customary to underline things. And there are, in our kind of rulemaking manuals and procedures, there are really, it's looking up definitions to kind of definitions, but really explicit definitions of, what may means and what shall means.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I really appreciate I was going to say example, the suggestion you gave of examples of, and that's something we will take into consideration.
I mean, it's just a thought.
Appreciate
So.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Sophie, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to just how this works in practice in the IREG system, because that's something I'm not as familiar with.
Yes, thank you. And we do sometimes ask that manufacturers state whether or not they are using prescription drugs, the price of a competing prescription drug as one of the factors, because it is so common in generics. Some manufacturers may think that, well, people don't do that. They most certainly do, and they have admitted much as such numerous times, and often not even trade secret. Yeah, we raised our price because our competitor did. And when we just asked for those information, what was that? What were you looking at when you did that? You know, basically is the name of the drug and their WAC price, which is something that manufacturers have available to them. And that's very common in generics. I even had one say, oh, we found we were much lower than our competitor, so we raised our price. Well, you know, and you also see it very common in generics where they're all the same price. WAC price in the compendium. So it is not uncommon for another prescription drug to be a major factor in why a price was increased.
So Sophie, it sounds like what you're saying with in terms of the IREG system itself, where the reporting is done, that people are filers are checking a box like, was this a factor? Yes or no?
We haven't updated that.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we won't be able to update the IREG necessarily right away, but you know, we may very well remain a text box, but we may likely will update our instructions to kind of match what we do in new drug prices about whether the setting of a new generic had anything to do with the price of the, you know, based on the price of the brand or another generic. And so we may kind of have that as a requirement when a generic is being reported, but or an expectation.
Okay. Thanks, Sophie. Let's go ahead and go back to the slides, please, Karen. Thank you. And I think we can go to the next slide. Okay. So the other thing that was a big topic of conversation last time was my attempt at making things more easy to read, which made them more confusing, which was adding the reporting year term. And so after discussion with program staff, we decided to revert back to the original language, which is not necessarily concise, but sounds like it was more clear. So to the calendar year preceding the report. We did add a little bit of new language since we're asking for the new data collection points, and you can see that in the bullet below. Again, I'm getting no points for brevity, but hopefully it's clear. Calendar year prior to the year described in the previous section of this rule. And we can go to an example of that in a moment. Certainly welcome other comment about this, either today and in written comment following this. The other point that I will make is that I've talked with Sophie and other program staff about having some examples or some additional clarifying language in the kind of guidance. And the last thing I'll say about this is that we did, hearing all of our comments and knowing that, we've updated these rules, kind of, this is a third-ish time, thinking about the temporary rules that, consistency is really important for clarity. So we also opened or updated language and, other statutes, not other statutes, in other sections of the rule, just to have some consistency. So we don't look at it in a year or two and kind of forget why we've done something. So Sophie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the folks in the rack here know that one of the things that we're thinking about going ahead and moving forward with, because normally we try to keep the user guide up to date, but we were thinking that we would make a separate supplemental guide specifically for the annual increase and specifically list out the years that are due that year and have that available in by early January, so that it would be very clear as to which years are being reported and what the expectations are, especially if we're not able to update the system right away. And so I just wanted to let everyone know that we're going to try to make that super clear and maybe not even have to use these terms, any strange terms, just specifically say for the report due this year, here are the dates and expectations of information.
Thanks, Sophie. Karen, do you mind, well, I guess I'll just say the last one since it's a short one. We also removed from net profit or loss, we moved the addition of or loss. And really our intent there was some filers do put in a loss or zero, so we were just trying to be inclusive of that, but we did remove it. If you could go back to the rule itself, I just want to show an example of the reporting year change. So actually you could stay right there and scroll up just a little bit. So one of the changes, if you look at the bottom of the page, yes, at 12. So just wanted to highlight that is one of the things that we hadn't changed previously, and just to be consistent with the language that we're using. Again, so not changing the meaning, but just trying to conform with the language that we're using. So instead of saying in the previous calendar year, we're changing it to in the calendar year preceding the report. So again, just for consistency throughout the rule. But if you could scroll up now, Karen. I really appreciate you driving. I cannot talk and drive.
No,
Yeah, keep going up just a little
going
bit.
up. Okay.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
here we go. Probably.
Yeah, a little bit more. Yes. Yep, that's good. Okay, so here's two examples, 4 and 5, of how this looks. So, for each price change during the calendar year preceding the report, if applicable. And again, that's just reverting to the previous language, and that's why I highlighted it. And then you can see in 5, how we decided to change it was during the calendar year preceding the year described in section 4 of this rule. So that means the one that we just talked about, the section 4. So I realize that is quite lengthy, but that's the best that we came up with in terms of clarity. And again, Sophie's talked a little bit about some steps that they'll make in the guidelines to hopefully make that even more clear, but really do welcome your comments now or written comments after this if you think there could be improvements. Really welcome that. And not hearing any immediately.
I'm sorry. I do have a question on 8. Item 8
Oh,
there.
yeah.
The date and price when the prescription drug first entered the market with approval from the FDA. So as we know in the pharmaceutical industry, drugs move from one manufacturer to another. So I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around the first entered the market with approval from the FDA. You could have, particularly like Sophie was mentioned on the generic side, products could move from manufacturer to a manufacturer, and they've been out there for many, many years. And sometimes, particularly in the pricing compendias, there will not be that historical data to go back to. So the date and price when the prescription drug first entered the market with approval from the FDA, that may not be visible to somebody who's acquired the product. There may be, you may have, and I come from the generic world, so this has kind of been where I lived for many years. You may have a product that is brought to market, and then it it may be discontinued, and then it may be brought back into the market. It just depends on the need and things of that nature. So there may not be the availability to the manufacturer who had potentially acquired the product to know the date and price when it first entered the market with approval. So what would a manufacturer do when that case arises? Sophia, I can see you thinking about that one because we've kind of talked
No,
about this in the past. Yeah.
I'm totally understanding that. We would not have that information to know either. So, basically do your best, and the oldest date and price that you know of.
So the
And
oldest date and price that can be provided.
Yes, I think would be an acceptable alternative when it's very difficult to go back, because there are times in the compendium where it's linked to the old NDC, and it's easy enough to go and see what the initial price was, or it's not that old of a drug, because it's the newer drugs are more likely to be bought and sold like candy. The sometimes the companies get bought and sold for, some of the older drugs and things like that too. So that certainly can happen with older drugs. But in my mind, it would just be a reasonableness of, trying to get back to the earliest date and price, because part of the reason for asking for those things is to allow transparency of what did this drug originate at and when, and what is it now. And so if there's something from 1960, it's probably completely irrelevant anyway. But if it's something from 2000 and the price has doubled since then, that's something that the public would want to be aware of.
Yeah. It's just, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Lynetta.
It's just sometimes it's not known.
Yeah. What you can only report what you know. So the oldest thing you can report is, except, it would be understandable, but if it's in the compendium linked to the prior NDC, it should be easy enough to go to that prior NDC and look at the oldest price.
Okay. If it's visible in the compendia. Okay.
Yeah. That would be our expectation.
The other thing about this one, if you could scroll down a little bit, Karen, this is not, even though it looks like a new requirement, it's not. We just keep scrolling down a little bit, like I think it's 13.
We combined
maybe.
a couple.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, we've just had this come up in the past where we've had to try to determine. I mean, we work with so many different manufacturers, well over 100.
Yeah.
We have all kinds.
You're not the first one to ask about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we have all kinds of adventures going on, and the portfolios, some of them are very large generic portfolios that we're trying to help them maintain compliance with. So sometimes it's just very difficult to know.
Yeah.
They don't have that history. Sometimes they do. If it's a newer product and that kind of stuff, sure, the pricing compendiums are a great source, but stuff. And it doesn't seem like it's that long ago, but from the 90s, it may not be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've told others the oldest you can easily find. And
whatever the oldest date and prices that we can find. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And just noting that this, just for your information, is that this was and previous N that is now deleted, and again just trying to combine it with something. But well, I mean, it sounds like Sophie's had this question before, but we'll think if there's a way to clarify that in the rules. But if so glad you're asking, Lynetta.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and go back to the PowerPoint, Karen. Thank you. And we can go to the next slide, because there are some comments that we received where we did not make revisions. We received some written comments about the patient assistance reporting and reporting on international pricing, and those being, I'll just say a blanket term, kind of burdensome, among other things. Those requirements are in statute, and rules must reflect statute. So we're not making any changes in response to those comments. Certainly nice to have them on the record. We did receive a comment about the new request proposal to report on every price change, that is a burdensome ask. And really our intent here and our purpose behind asking that is not to add administrative burden unnecessarily, but really that these data points are necessary for program staff to verify that these reports are actually necessary as required by statute. It sounds like there have been, it's not uncommon for manufacturers to sometimes report when they don't actually need to. So really just trying to have that be clear and verifiable. And then there were, I believe we talked about it, and that there were also written comments about using the term all factors, that section that we already discussed a little bit at the beginning, that all factors is burdensome. And again, this is a place where we are reflecting the intent of statute, where the language in statutes requires reporting on the factors. And the plain language reading of just saying, the factors means really all the factors. And so again, this is a place where in rule, we're trying to clarify the intent of statute. So these are, if you can go to one other, the next, I don't think it was, yeah. So those, you can go back. Thanks, Karen. Those were really the comments that we did not, where we did not make any changes to the rule. But happy to open it up to further conversation, things I may have missed. Really anything that you're thinking of right now. We can go back to the rules themselves too. Yeah, Mike.
Question about, I think it's on page 9.
Okay.
It refers to the NDC number, I believe. Are you going to be wanting the NDC 9 or the NDC 11?
It looks like on page 9 we didn't really make any changes. Is this where you're looking?
Hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay.
It is, no, it's not 9. The page that talks about NDC reporting. Let me go find it.
Yeah, we're
Page
typically
8.
talking about the package NDC, but
Yeah.
not the product NDC. But I don't
Okay,
know.
so it's page 8, number 14. The manufacturer's net profit attributable to the prescription drug during the calendar year. So are we?
We understand that you might not have any of these prices or the profit or the sales at the package level. We understand that it may very well be at the product level, and that's
Okay.
acceptable.
Okay, good. Yeah, I wasn't sure.
I can try to
gonna
put something. I can try to make sure the instructions say something about that.
Thanks, Sophie. I
thought
remember
we
that
had already
coming up.
covered it, but we haven't updated this stuff in a while because of the court case. So
Yeah, and I do remember that coming up, I believe, when we were talking, when we did the prior rulemaking. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you, Mike.
Sure.
Are there other?
yeah, it's the same thing applies to the marketing and the new drug from the previous rulemaking.
Yeah. I mean, there's always stuff like that, right? If you haven't had a chance to look at it, you find out
Oh,
later.
yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yep.
should have done that. The only other question that I had was page 11, assessments against prescription drug manufacturers. The first one says once annually, no later than October 1, all reporting manufacturers will pay an assessment of $400. Is this a $400 fee, $400 assessment and the annual fee? Or
That's the old one.
Is the fee the $400?
Yeah, so Mike, this is an old, you can see at the title, it's for 2023 and prior.
Yeah.
And if you scroll down, this was just, it was in here for historical reference. So I
And we do
updated
back billing.
yeah.
Okay.
So assessments is not something that I have done in detail. Really, Sophie is more of the expert in that.
Yeah, we updated this when we changed the fee, and so Courtney did the rulemaking for this, and this is in here because we do back billing, and so that still applies to people who had not registered when they should have, but it doesn't apply for going forward is the new billing process.
Okay.
So just because we just have about 25 minutes left, Mike, glad you brought it up. And I think that, if you do have further questions about that, that'd be something to connect with Sophie kind of offline, since those aren't rules that we're updating right now. Yeah.
No,
And let me
perfectly.
know if
Thank you.
Yeah. And let me know if you don't have her contact information readily available. Daria, please.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, just general comments. Forma reiterates concerns we raised in the previous meeting and our letter, but support the change made on updating the CMS threshold and appreciate you adding that in.
Yeah, so glad you mentioned it, Daria.
Yeah, it's so hard to find those. I don't get a notification.
Yeah, I had to ask our subject matter experts to find the letter for me too.
Yeah.
So we always appreciate people providing that information, especially in a timely for something timely like this.
Yeah. Well, and Daria, I know Pharma, you all are great about doing a really close read. We really want to make sure we get that section right. I mean, every section, but of course, and we believe we have, and called it the 2027 call letter. But in comments, please let us know if you think we did not capture that accurately. Any other Lynetta.
This is a little bit off topic, but
Okay.
I have several manufacturers who are asking if there is any way possible on payment of the fee, would the state have any ability to do ACH besides a check or a credit card? Payments are. I'm sorry.
Just thinking about time, Sophie, I wonder if this is a question we could take offline, just not in the rulemaking time, Lynetta.
Okay.
Yeah, that we can do it at the end if there's time.
Yeah. So don't want to stop that conversation, but just looking at the rulemaking time that we have. Okay, are there any other kind of questions, comments, discussion about the rules that we have been revising today? Certainly, there's still time to submit written comments, and we'll talk about that timeline. But before we go to public comment, if you could go to the sniffy slide, Karen. And this is one of the documents that I sent in advance about we call it the SNFI for short, the Statement of Need and Fiscal Impact. And really thinking about how adoption of these rules will affect equity, will have an impact on fiscal and economic outlooks, particularly for small businesses. So hoping that folks got a chance to look over that draft and welcome any comments on that. And, one thing that I will say is that, this is really about the proposed changes to the rules, not to the underlying rules themselves and statutory requirements. We certainly acknowledge and do so in the Statement of Need and Fiscal Impact that we realize there are substantial impacts from the statutory requirements and from the underlying rules. Really, we're looking about the changes that we're making in this rulemaking. So with that, I really welcome any feedback. certainly welcome to provide feedback on the statement of need and fiscal impact in written comment letters now or at the hearing. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Karen. That's great. Not hearing any at the moment. Let's go ahead and move to the public comment section, unless anybody has any other comments. Do we have anybody signed up or on? I haven't noticed, Karen.
No, I have not
Okay.
seen
If there is any,
anybody.
okay. If there is anyone on for public comment, now is the time. Please go ahead and come off mute. Okay. Not hearing anything. If you could go to the next slide. So again, we've talked about written comments based on these revisions to the rules. We would like those by the close of business on July 8th. And our official public hearing, and Karen, I believe this is correct, is August 25th.
Let's see. That sounds about right. Yes, that's a Tuesday. That's correct.
Okay. Karen, do you mind just saying, I mean, so for those of you who haven't, I know many of you have come to an official public hearing, but that is will be very similar. It will be in so much more formal. I will not, respond to any questions or comments that folks have, but I will,
Right.
read a statement about the changes to the rules, and it's an opportunity for people, for anybody to provide public comment. It's just it's not conversational. Anything else you'd like to add about that official public hearing, Karen?
It's generally pretty short because we are reading off of a script. Like Sophie said, or Lily said, we do not respond at all. We will provide in the notice of proposed rulemaking the date for the deadline for public comment after, which is always about a week after the rulemaking hearing. So
yeah. Okay, thanks, Karen. Does anybody, before we close out, a few minutes early, and I was so worried about time. Does anybody have any kind of final comments or questions or concerns, things you'd like to raise about the rules, the proposed rules, or the statement of need or fiscal impact? I will just note that that Tim Litton, who messaged me this morning that he was not able to attend, did say he had read them and did not have concerns. So really appreciate everybody's participation, especially coming back for a second meeting. Yeah, really appreciate the thoughtful and thorough consideration of these proposed rules. Okay. Not seeing any other hands. Really appreciate your time and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.